It had been a lousy week for Potiphar. All his bills had come in at once, and he knew his wife liked shopping, but honestly, all those slinky dresses. He'd have to build a special slinky dress extension to house them all at this rate. And his roof was leaking, and his slaves were old and decrepit and rude, and at least you'd have thought with all this worry he'd be losing a bit of weight, but no, he was getting fatter and fatter. And what was worse, desperately, frighteningly worse, was that he was sure the Pharaoh was going off him. And when Pharaoh went off you, you tended to wake up one morning without a head. "Give me a cuddle, darling," said Potiphar. "I'm feeling insecure." "Not now, go away, I'm doing my lipstick," she replied. Potiphar wasn't getting many cuddles at all nowadays. Mind you, who'd want to cuddle a fat old soldier who couldn't even do his trousers up properly? Then suddenly, his wife's arms were round him, and all the troubles of the world floated away just like that. "Darling," she said, "why don't we go out and buy a nice new slave? A little runabout thing for me to do the shopping with. You'd like that, wouldn't you?" And even though he couldn't afford it, Potiphar said yes. Egypt was fantastic. Big, noisy, the best music in the world, the best shows, the best shops, and definitely the best slave markets. A new batch had just arrived from some godforsaken place up north. Potiphar's wife waded through the crowd, prizing the slaves' mouths open to look at their teeth, yanking at their hair to make sure it didn't fall out, feeling their biceps and triceps and pectorals, until suddenly, "Oh, I want it," she said. "It's lovely. Look at its thighs and its shoulders. Oh, please. Oh, please, oh, please, oh, please, oh, please, oh, please. It's hardly any age at all." And she gave Potiphar another big cuddle. Joseph couldn't believe this. He was destined for greatness, not to be the plaything of some foreign middle-aged nitwit. Something would happen. Any moment now, an amazing miracle would burst onto the earth and get him out of this horrible mess. "Anything for my gorgeous puppet," said Potiphar adoringly, handed over the money and dragged Joseph off in chains. "I suppose our tribe god's out of reach at this distance," thought Joseph as he shuffled off. "Looks like I'll have to get out of this mess all by myself." When they got back to Potiphar's house, it was in uproar. The leaking roof had become a torrent, the bailiffs were taking the furniture away, and the slaves had broken into the cocktail cabinet and were as drunk as skunks. Potiphar burst into tears. "What am I going to do?" he cried. "Somebody help me!" "Allow me, your royal nobleness," said Joseph, and before anyone could say, "Who do you think you are, you jumped-up little slave?" he'd thrown the other slaves under the torrent of water to sober up, rescheduled Potiphar's debts to keep the bailiffs off his back, and found an odd-job man in the yellow papyruses who'd mended the roof and the cocktail cabinet in exchange for a free meal and one of Potiphar's old regimental jackets. Joseph mopped up, whipped the slaves, sent them to bed in the outside shed, and baked some cakes. "Not for me," said Potiphar, patting his stomach. "You're not fat," said Joseph. "Your clothes are a bit too small, that's all. I'll alter them in the morning. Right, I'm off to the outside shed for a kip. I've got a long day tomorrow." "Oh, you sleep indoors," said Potiphar's wife, and gave him a rather peculiar smile. "You never know. We might spring another leak." Potiphar couldn't believe his luck. Joseph had changed his life. He felt more confident, happier, thinner. His work had improved 200%. He'd been made captain of the palace guard, and relief upon relief, the Pharaoh had just given him a zonking great pay rise. "Joseph," he said, "I'm going to make you my private secretary. I have grown to love you like a son." "Thank you," said Joseph. "And my wife has grown to love you like a son too. Haven't you, darling?" "Absolutely," she agreed, although Joseph couldn't help thinking it was a rather different kind of love that she had in mind.
Joseph really got stuck into his new job. He zoomed about, paying the bills, answering the messengers, sorting out the slaves. He got a real kick out of bossing people about. Mind you, he did keep getting interrupted. "Joseph," Potiphar's wife would call out, "fix me a drink, I'm bored." Then, 5 minutes later, "Joseph, be a pet and zip me up." 5 more minutes, then, "Joseph, my U-bend's blocked, come and fix it." "I'll send for the odd job man, Mrs. P." "I don't want the odd job man," said Potiphar's wife. "I want you. Please come upstairs. I've got a brand new compendium of games that's never been opened." "Please," insisted Joseph. "Your husband's been good to me. I'm his trusted friend and servant. The last thing I want to do is play with his wife's compendium." And he walked stiffly out of the room. Next morning, very early, Joseph had just finished his shower when... Help! Help! He heard shouting coming from Mrs. Potiphar's bedroom. He raced through to her room. "It's a snake! Quick!" she said. "No, it isn't. It's your garter," replied Joseph. "May I go now, please?" "But I'm so frightened," she insisted. "Please hold me for a minute. See, my little heart's beating. Oh, I feel so hot. I'm going to have to take off my..." "No, you won't," said Joseph. "I'll see you later." "Please stay. I've given all the slaves the day off." "No, I'm going out." "You can't. I've locked all the doors." "In that case," said Joseph, "I'll climb out the window." And he did. But unfortunately for him, she was still clutching his dressing gown, so by the time he landed... And it was at that moment that Potiphar came home and saw his private secretary sprinting towards the outside shed with nothing on, while his wife was shouting, come back, at the top of her voice from the bedroom window. "What is going on?" he roared. "Ah! Oh, thank heavens you're back, darling," she said. "That horrid man just burst into my bedroom with nothing on. You come back," she shouted. "My husband's going to deal with you." "I certainly am, darling," agreed Potiphar. "Guards, arrest Joseph and have him thrown into prison." An Egyptian prison isn't the prettiest of places at the best of times, but this one was the pits, and the jailer had had a terrible week. All his bills had come in at once, and he knew his wife liked shopping, but honestly, he'd have to get an extension built soon for all the clogs she bought recently, and the roof was leaking, and his warders were old and decrepit and rude, and he was getting thinner and thinner, and none of his trousers fitted anymore, and... "Good morning," said Joseph as he was flung into his cell. "Can I be of any help?" And guess what? Within a week, the jailer had made Joseph his private secretary. The pharaoh of all Egypt was feeling tetchy. And when you're not only the emperor of the largest civilization the world has ever seen, but also a seriously major god in your own right, you can be as foul as you like, and no one will dare to tell you to lighten up. "This isn't wine, it's liquid sewage," he roared, and he spat it straight into the wine waiter's face. "Fling this wretch into prison," he roared, "and let him rot there for the rest of his life. And where's my pudding?" "Your pudding will be here in a couple of minutes," the sweet trolley waiter said, and immediately wished he hadn't. "A couple of minutes!" roared Pharaoh. "A couple of minutes!" A couple of minutes later, the wine waiter and the sweet trolley waiter were flung into prison. Joseph checked them in, showed them to their chains, and eventually everyone settled down for the night. The wine waiter woke up in a terrible state. "I've had this ghastly dream," he said. "I dreamt I was in here polishing the pharaoh's goblet when suddenly this huge grapevine came bursting out of the floor, and these 3 massive tendrils wrapped themselves around my body, and I was choking, and I grabbed hold of something all soft and squidgy and disgusting, and it was this enormous bunch of grapes, and the grape juice came gushing down into the goblet, and then this massive hand appeared out of nowhere and snatched it from me, and I spun round, and towering over me was the pharaoh. Pretty scary, eh?" "Don't worry," said Joseph. "It just means that in 3 days' time you'll be out of here and back at your old job. Trust me, I know about dreams, they're my thing. Now go back to sleep." Oh, what a relief. How can I ever thank you? Easy. As soon as you get out of here, make sure that I get out too. Is it a deal? It's a deal. Excuse me, said the sweet trolley waiter. I had this terrible dream too. It's pretty much the same, really. When do I get out? I dreamt that I was pushing my sweet trolley along with these 3 nice puddings on it for the pharaoh, when suddenly this flock of blue tits burst in through the window and ate my 3 nice puddings. And then there was a tap on my shoulder, and I spun round, and there was the pharaoh towering over me. Pretty scary, eh? No grapevines bursting out of the floor? Oh, no. No grape juice? Absolutely not. And you're sure you want to know what it means? I most certainly do. Well, it means that in 3 days' time, Pharaoh will chop your head off, hang your body from a pole, and blue tits will come and nest in it. Ho, 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 laughed the sweet trolley waiter. Absolute rubbish. What'd you have to go and tell me that for? "'Cause you asked," said Joseph. And he went back to sleep. 3 days later, it was Pharaoh's birthday, and he wanted to throw a really big party. But how could he? He'd got no wine waiter, no sweet trolley waiter. The 2 men were whisked out of prison at the speed of light. "See," said the sweet trolley waiter as he waved goodbye to Joseph and stuck out his tongue. Then the party really began. The wine flowed. Pharaoh put his arm round his old friend, the wine waiter, and showered him with gold. The hors d'oeuvre was great. The main course was fantastic. Soon it was time for the sweet trolley. "I'll have that one, and that one, and that one," said Pharaoh. "And how would you like some gold?" "Fine, fine," said the sweet trolley waiter. "Whatever makes you happy, my lord." And he started to spoon out the pudding. Except that at that moment, a little bluebird flew in through the window and momentarily distracted him. Plop, plop, plop. He spooned the pudding right into Pharaoh's lap. Soon, his body was hanging from a pole on the battlements, and blue tits were nesting in it. Every so often, his old friend the wine waiter would come up and visit him and shoo away the birds. But the weeks and the months and the years went by, and eventually he forgot the sweet trolley waiter and stopped coming. He didn't really have a very good memory. The other thing he'd forgotten was that Joseph was still in prison, and at this rate, he'd never get out.